Hey everyone, welcome to this weekly Sidereal Astrology forecast for the week of December 5th through the 11th of 2022. Alright, so this week we have a lot going on astrologically. Most simply is we do have this full moon, which will be around the Wednesday and Thursday time period. Now it is going to be in grounded Taurus, but it is going to be conjunct retrograde Mars, very closely conjunct in fact. So it is a time always of full moons to do a bit of a status check, see how things are going. With the Taurus side of things, how is our inner and outer resources? But this is what's been going through the reworking with Mars. And so now really illuminating Mars, the fiery, assertive energies, and see how they're going. How has this perhaps retrograde been going? It's been a good time to re-examine our needs, re-examine how we assert ourselves, our desires, who we are, what we want. All of this really getting illuminated and perhaps some important shifts and changes there. Now this week we have sign changes. Mercury right at the beginning of the week, late Sunday, early Monday, is coming out of healing Ophiuchus and going into more expansive Sagittarius. So a bit of the post-transformation this week when it comes to Mercury things like our communications, perhaps our mind, how we learn, and also our routines as well. Venus is going to do the same thing here. So that's going to be around the Thursday, Friday time period. Again, coming out of that deeper energy, more into the post-free-spirited energies of Sag. And with Venus, it deals more with perhaps our relationships and also our values going through this final transformation this week. The Sun will be entering healing Ophiuchus here about midweek as well. So we still do have that energy to work with in regards to healing going into next week with the Sun still here. All right, and then the aspects this week, we do have two squares, but they are with Jupiter, expansive Jupiter. So on the easier side, even though it is good to balance out the optimism, the open-mindedness, the opportunities or potentials that we can ground just to prevent any pendulum swings with some of those things, since Mercury and Venus will be squaring up to Jupiter. All right, so let's go and take a look at all of this here in more detail when we return. Alrighty, so I do have an announcement to make. MTZ just opened a Twitter account to join up with the other social media accounts that we had. A lot of you asked for Twitter over the years, and we just haven't got around to doing it, but we did. And so please take a moment to pause the video, go over and like the Twitter page. There's a link down below in the comment section. It should be the pinned comment all the way on the top. Please take a moment to pause the video, go over there and like and follow the Twitter account. It would really mean a lot, and especially if you're getting value from these videos, it would be very much appreciated. Okay, so looking at the weekly forecast here today for this week, we're going to start here with Monday, December 5th, 2022, and moving through each day of the week, going through the week here. And as you can see, we are using the visible sky on this channel, which is very different from mainstream astrology. And so if you are new and you're noticing things like the full moon being in Taurus instead of Gemini, for example, check out that link down below for more information on using the visible sky called True Sidereal Astrology. All right, so let's go ahead and take a quick recap and see where everything is coming into this week, because we do have quite a straightforward energy. It's just in the deeper world coming into this week. The energy from last week, we've had Mercury and Venus in healing Ophiuchus. A lot of things in our day-to-day lives with our relationships, with our values, have been going through that deeper world. And now, late last week, but now especially early this week, going through this transformation, this final transformation. This part of the sky here is the galactic center, the center of the Milky Way, and very energetic, very powerful part of the sky, especially for those of you who've been lucky enough to see it in the sky. You can see the magnificent energy and concentration of energy in this part of the sky. But as planets pass over it, it really is that transformative energy, the death and the rebirth. This is really where that analogy of the phoenix rising up out of the ashes really comes from. And so Mercury is going over that galactic center, well, just did late last week. So very late Sunday, going into Monday of this week, there is that slowly coming out of that deeper energy and more into the post-transformative energies where Mercury will be for the coming weeks, which will be expanding our horizons a little bit mentally. Philosophy, abstract stuff, again, post-transformation, the butterfly emerging out of the cocoon when it comes to our mind and communications, and even a lot going on with our routines as well. With Venus, she'll be doing the same thing, but a little bit later. She's going to start to go into Sagittarius here around Thursday and Friday, but she is going to be over that galactic center early in the week. So a bit of an apex there in regards to transformations with Venus stuff, which is our values and our relationships fundamentally. Okay, so allowing some of that death and rebirth there, some of that transformation. This does, of course, happen every year, so nothing too major there, but still perfect time of the year for this kind of energy to be aligned to it. And then perhaps noticing that later in the week and into next week, we're coming into that more free-spirited, post-transformative energy with those values and relationships. Okay, now the sun will be still transiting through this deeper part of the sky into next week as well. And we'll be shifting into Ophiuchus about midweek around Wednesday. But for all intents and purposes, it is about being aware of the deeper world and perhaps starting to focus, continuing to focus, let's say, on anything healing in your life, whether it's mental, emotional, physical healing, or mental, emotional, spiritual, spiritual energy or physical energy. Okay, all types of healing is what Ophiuchus symbolizes, and it really is that time of the year for that, fundamentally to be aware of the deeper world and to work with it. Okay, so that's where all the the fast movers next to the sun are, and Mars, of course, here still retrograde, which is really being illuminated in this full moon. So that's going to be, again, Wednesday and Thursday's full moon. But let's talk about that when we get to it. Coming into this week, we do have the moon in Aries, so there could be some themes around our needs, our desires, and our assertiveness, which is, again, really what's getting illuminated midweek. But with the moon here on Monday, maybe some themes around that, and anything that could be about taking initiative in our life could be a good way of working with that Monday time period. Again, with some reflection, with some reworking, with some willingness to adapt and change and perhaps take a step back as Mars is retrograde. And it's a time of redoing, reworking, reconsidering these fiery things, these things that deal with our needs, our assertiveness, our independence, who we are, what we want, all this stuff. Again, the full moon will be very closely conjuncted. But Mercury will be squaring up to expansive Jupiter late Monday going into Tuesday here. And so our minds are getting a dose of, again, that free-spiritedness. This part of the sky just happens to be the square to Jupiter at this time, and Jupiter is the ruler of Sagittarius. So it's very much that same energy. But with the square, there is usually a tend towards imbalance, towards an unhealthy energy of it. And so squares to Jupiter might come across as with Mercury, maybe being, thinking optimistically, being open-minded, being adventurous. But of course, there's always that caution of being overly optimistic. But then if we do, then maybe the pendulum will swing the other way, right? And so this pendulum can go back and forth. Over optimism, under optimism. Over hopefulness, under hopefulness. Inspired, not inspired. And so anything that is intentionally aware of this and channeling it constructively is great. So recognizing that there are opportunities, but perhaps they do take work or patience, right? Bring in maybe some of that Saturn energy to help ground some of that bit of erratic Jupiter when he's in that square. Okay, so constructive expanding of our horizons, constructive open-mindedness, I think is a great way of working with really the whole week at large, but around that Tuesday time period in particular. Okay, and then Wednesday here, or actually Tuesday, while Mercury is squaring that Jupiter, the moon will be starting to shift into Taurus, where we're going to have that full moon. Okay, and so the moon will be in Taurus from Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday here. Okay, and so this is Taurus the bull, where we're having that full moon. And so it's all about taking things slowly and steadily. Taurus the bull reminds us that it is the time to take things one step at a time, to be grounded, to cultivate our inner strength, our inner resources, self-worth, self-value, self-reliance, but also externally as well. Our external resources And the moon is exalted here. The moon does like to be here. Mars not so much. So there's challenging energy with it. Plus the full moon will be squaring Neptune, which I'll go into a detailed video on this full moon here shortly in a day or two. But Taurus reminds us to cultivate our inner and outer resources, right? To take things one step at a time. And I think it's a great time to be grateful for what we do have on the material realm. Always good to be grateful with Taurus. Also grateful for what inner resources we do have, our natural talents, natural abilities, any inner, we all have that connection. We all have that self-worth, self-value to be connected to, right? So it's the time of the month to be reminded for this to be illuminated. But Mars is really going to be strong with this one. It is within a 1 degree conjunction with Mars, this full moon. Very rare to have such close conjunctions like this to planets, which really makes it in many ways like a full moon in Aries, which is that constellation of Mars, initiative, right? Taking action. And now with this full moon, doing this status check with what are our needs, what are our desires, right? And, doing a bit of a reflection, maybe some shifts and adjustments with that. It's still going through a lot of shifts and adjustments. We're only at about the halfway point of the Mars retrograde. Mars went retrograde back on October 31st and will be retrograde until January 13th. So we're about in that halfway range. Good to do that status check. How is our assertive side, our initiating side, right? How are our needs and who we are and what we want? This is getting illuminated to be reworked for the second half here of that Mars retrograde. Again, all in the context of those inner resources, fundamentally, cultivating those inner and outer resources here in our life. Okay, so that's Wednesday, Thursday with the full moon. It'll be about 22:49 Eastern time of the Americas there on Wednesday. But for all intents and purposes, these 2 days, you can see how close it is conjunct Mars because the sun will be opposite Mars exact here, almost exactly during the full moon here at 0040 Eastern time of the Americas. But anyways, balancing out that Mars energy will be key. But again, it all comes from awareness there. All right, and then as we do start to get into that Thursday time period, again, this is where Venus is going into more of that free-spirited energy. But good to balance that with a square to Jupiter on Friday. But here on Friday, the moon will be in Gemini, Saturday and Sunday. And so anything that is about learning and using our practical minds and perhaps some communication could be a good way of utilizing Gemini time periods. Learning, being interested, sharing and exchanging with others. And then the week does end here with the moon in Cancer, which is good for creating that protective environment for ourselves and others. This will take us into Monday a little bit as well. And really starting to integrate or implement really in this disseminating phase of the cycle into next week, implementing these shifts of insights from that full moon. All right, these are the aspects again for you guys to see. All right, everyone, so that is the week in a nutshell. Most important thing is full moon conjunct the halfway point of the Mars retrograde cycle. It's going to be Wednesday and Thursday. Good to do a status check with multiple areas of our life. Fundamentally, how is our slow and steady side? Are we willing to take things one step at a time and stop and smell the roses? Mars, what are our needs? Who are we? What do we want? What are our desires? How is our assertiveness and our initiating side? Maybe some things we're shifting and changing with that from the illumination of the full moon. We do have a lot of the sign changes from the deeper part of the sky of Ophiuchus going into more free-spirited Sagittarius energy, with both Mercury, planet of our minds and communications, and Venus, the planet of our values and relationships. Still good to be focused on that deeper world as the sun is still transiting through here as we go into next week. Definitely a mixed energy of the deeper world with the free-spirited one. All right, so everyone, have a fantastic week. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to click the like button if you're watching this on YouTube. And again, do check out the Twitter page. Send a follow down using the comment section where the link to the MTZ Twitter page is located. Really means a lot. But have a great one, and I'll see you all next time for the next astrology forecast. Take care.